All right. Look, got back in here yesterday evening, watched the tape. A lot of the same stuff that, I told you guys after the game was pretty evident on the tape. We didn't play well enough, really in any phase. Offensively, we've got to be able to run the football better. And then as we got late in the game, in the second half, I thought they were able to kind of pressure the quarterback a little bit more, and we weren't able to get as much done in the second half offensively. Defensively, we've got to do a better job of stopping the run. We got to tackle better. And we had some uncharacteristic mistakes, and that's on me to get that figured out and get that fixed. And so we've got a lot of getting better to do, but we got to learn from this, and we got to move forward.
I guess you probably asked this yesterday too. What can be done to fix the tackling? What do you do to fix the tackling?
Well, there won't be a whole lot we can do from a physical standpoint this week, being that we're on the short week with the Thursday deal. But that's got to be a point of emphasis. It hadn't typically been an area that we've had a lot of struggles with, but we certainly have the last 2 weeks. Really, I don't think we've tackled as well as we need to. So we've got to get that. We've got to get that fixed. We've got to get that corrected. And just in terms of our overall execution, is not where it needs to be. So I really got to look at what we're asking our guys to do, how much we're asking them to do. Are we asking them to do the right things? We're putting them in the right positions. Because right now we're not playing defense the way that we have and the way that we're capable of.
How difficult is it to get anything corrected on such a brief week, especially knowing you need to just move on?
Well, the number one thing is you got to recognize the issues. That's the first thing you have to be able to do. And so you got to recognize what the issues are, and then you got to put emphasis on those issues. And the physical part won't be as much this week, but the mental part of stressing the importance is going to be important.
How do you look at the tape now? How do you feel about the effort throughout the game?
Well, I thought somewhere there in the late third quarter, fourth quarter, that I thought we got worn down a little bit. I know the guys that are in that locker room. They're tough, competitive people, and so I don't question effort with our guys. We obviously have to be better, but that's not really a question that I have of our guys. I think we'll be better this week.
Dennis, you guys, beyond just this game, you guys are now ranked 32nd in the NFL in defense for the season, yards allowed for the season. That makes it a season-long problem in some ways. Can you identify what, beyond just missed tackles, is there anything that's been a through line?
I think execution's been a big issue. We haven't executed as well as we need to. And then, tackling has been an issue. So it's something that we've got to figure out, and we got to figure it out in a hurry.
And effort can mean different things, I guess. It's what you see on film when a team's just on the wrong end of a snowball effect. Is that something that's happened to this team this season?
Yeah, but look, we're not going to sit here and make excuses for where we're at or what we've put on tape. That's all of us included, coaches, players, everybody. We've got to perform better, and so it's my job to ultimately get that done.
Rattlers day after you go back and watch the tape?
I thought in particular early on in the game, in the first half, I thought he did some really good things. I thought he was poised. I thought he went through his progressions. I thought he was able to create some things with his feet. I thought he threw the ball well. I think he got fooled on a throw late in the game, and then I think he underthrew the one deep ball or crossing route to Shaheed. I thought he underthrew that just a little bit, but I think those are things that come, with experience of being able to get in the game and make those types of throws and understand how you have to be able to layer that throw in there. So I thought for a first time out, I thought there was a lot of good things, and then there's a lot of things for him to learn from.
Dennis, I know it's the next opponent and you need a win, but what does it mean that on the opposite sideline, Sean's gonna be on the opposite sideline?
I'll be honest with you, I mean, I don't think that's where our focus needs to be. I think our focus needs to be on our football team and what we have to do to improve, and so I think that's really where our focus is going to be this week.
And it's, with Chris specifically, I think this is a concussion at each of his first 3 professional seasons. They went to college too. Is there any additional concern when it's like repeated?
Yeah, I think that's something that we have to pay attention to, you know. And unfortunately, that's part of the game that we play, but and it's unfortunate that's happened to him, and I think we got to, you know, be certainly cautious with him in terms of when he's available and when he's ready to go.
Having coached with them under him for so long, what are the challenges of facing a Peyton coach team?
Well, look, he's certainly, you know, a demanding coach and does a really good job, you know, with the offense. A lot of different personnels, formations. There's some shifts involved, and he does a really good job of kind of identifying areas of weakness that he wants to try to attack. And so, you know, certainly that'll be something that we'll have to deal with, you know, come Thursday night.
When you watch them on film, you see a lot of the same stuff that you're familiar with.
Yeah. I see some similarities, and yet I see him doing a few different things with the quarterback that they have, and so I think he does a really good job of, you know, finding out what his players can do well, identifying weaknesses in a defense, and putting his players in the best position to be successful with what they do.
Dennis, you guys have never, you know, you've had some losing streaks before and never really lost the buy-in of the locker room, but this is your first 4-game losing streak. I mean, is there a point where that reaches a crisis point? Do you have to really worry about keeping people believing?
Well, look, I think anytime you go through a rough stretch like this, I mean, I think it's challenging, you know, on all of us, and I think that's why we got to, you know, rely on the guys that we have in the locker room and the guys that we have and the competitive nature that those guys have, and so. You know, we're dealing with some injuries right now. We got to fight through this rough patch and hopefully get some guys back. But yeah, I think it's hard. I think it's challenging. But I got all the confidence in the world that our guys are going to stick together.
Anyone they're hopeful more turn on this short week? Or?
Yeah, I don't know that right now.
To that last point, Saunders talked about it yesterday. He said, when we asked him, he said, like, I'll play tomorrow, today. He just alluded to that as well. So having that mentality of guys that are already ready to get back on the field, what does that do for a team that's already ready to turn the page right now?
Well, look, I think that's kind of the good thing about, you know, being on a short week. You don't have a whole lot of time to sit here and feel sorry for yourself. You got to start preparing for another opponent. And so I think that's what we're here doing today. Today was a lot of recovery day for the players, and it's a lot of game planning stuff for the coaches.
As you said after the Chiefs game, that defensively y'all had to look at whether you were asking too much and maybe needed to simplify things a little bit. Did y'all simplify it, and is there a danger of overcorrecting in that?
Yeah, I think there's always that balance. I was just talking to the staff today about that. You know, I mean, obviously, we're not playing well defensively, you know, and so we've got to figure out ways to play better. And when I say that, you know, like we've got to be able to execute better. And so if you're not executing at a high level, then certainly I got to look at what we're doing and making sure I'm coaching it right, teaching it right, and not being too complicated.
Are teams attacking like the flats more against you guys recently? Does that boil down to like tackling?
Well, I don't know that they're necessarily attacking the flats. They're checking the ball down to the flat. It's gaining yards, you know, and so that's where some of that tackling comes into play. And so, but yeah, I mean, I can count several instances where we've kind of gotten the team to throw the ball where we kind of want them to, checking the ball down to the flat. And so we've got to be able to come down and make tackles and limit those gains.
How is it that tackling can become a group problem? If I'm missing 2 or 3 tackles in a game, that means I'm struggling as a tackler, but theoretically, it shouldn't mean that somebody else is too. Why is it becoming a group problem?
Well, I think we got to put more emphasis on it.
Dennis, I mean, honestly, we're trying to ask these questions in different ways because we haven't seen the defense perform like this. I mean, it's the same system to a degree, some of the same players, same coaching. What do you identify that makes it, become, go from being one of the best in the league to so far this season, one of the worst in the league? Like,
Yeah.
what elements do change if it's not scheme and players necessarily?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, the players aren't going to change. I mean, when you only got so many guys, it's not like there's anybody that's going to come in from outside. We've gone through rough patches before. We'll come out the other end on this thing. But yeah, we got to figure it out. And that falls on me to get that done. And I got confidence in my ability to do that. I think my track record here as a defensive coach would say that.
And how frustrating is that as a coach, though, knowing that, we know guys don't just forget how to tackle, so how frustrating is it, like, having to reteach it?
Yeah, well, look, that's part of why we're here. That's our job. My job, coach's job. We've got to do a better job of making sure that our guys understand the fundamentals of it, and the technique of it.
With your track record, can you think of another time that you guys experienced a rough patch defensively and you
Look, I mean, I think you can go to any season and say, man, there's been a couple of games where you have a rough patch. This has been a little bit more than what we've been used to around here. So, like I said, we got to figure it out. We got to get it fixed fast.
Does it make it harder when it's like you're starting at a lower point? Or like if you guys are like worse defensively than the past, then like is it harder to find those solutions?
Look, I mean, we just got to keep climbing back. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going from worst to first in one day. So we got to go back to the process, focus on the details, focus on the fundamentals, and do the little things better.
Can you explain the rationale between activating Kendra Miller off IR and then leaving him down for game day?
Yeah, I think the rationale is we were going to have him ready to go if needed to be. But I anticipate him being ready to go this week.
Dennis, you guys have had 3 games in a row that was like illegal motion or shift penalties. Is the specific penalty, you have to set your feet and stop once you turn? And
Yeah, well, everybody's got to be set. And so if somebody's shuffling their feet and then all of a sudden we send the guy in motion, there's a lot of elements that go along with that. But if somebody's not quite set and all of a sudden we send the guy in motion, then he's got to reset for a second before you can snap the ball. And so those are, much like we talked about defensively, those are the little bitty things that we've got to do better.
But we show you have to earn some more opportunity.
Yeah, look, I thought he did some good things in the game, and so we'll see, how many opportunities he gets. But I was encouraged by what I saw.
Going back to motion, it was the lowest motion percentage that we had seen on this offense so far this season. Was that part of the game plan, or was that something that was dictated?
I think it probably got dictated a little bit with, some of the like Chris going out kind of changed some things. As we got a little bit more into drop back mode in the second half, it became, it's not, we're not motioning quite as much. And I think, sometimes for the quarterback, when you change the picture for the defense, it changes the picture for the quarterback a little bit too.
Is it harder to run motion with a rookie quarterback?
Well, it depends on what you're trying to do. You know what I mean? Look, I think we've got to find ways to be able to run the ball more effectively. And when we've been able to run the ball effectively, that's the type of offense that I think we want to be and that we can be. I think we saw that in the first couple of weeks, and the last couple of weeks we haven't been able to do that as well.
When Tampa was able to generate more pressure in the second half, were they sending more blitzes? Like, how do you feel like what were they doing to generate that pressure?
Yeah, well, probably a little bit of both, but yeah, they sent some more pressures in the second half of that game.
Get some,
Probably starting in the 2 minute at the end of the first half.
get some fast starts the first 2 weeks, and then in each of the last 4 games, there seems to have been some kind of early game adversity. What role would you say that's played so far?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, you always like to, get off to a fast start, and I think that's kind of been an important part, of our team. When we've played well, we've gotten off to fast starts on both sides of the ball, and so I think we got to figure out how we can start a little faster on both sides. I think, look, defensively, we've done a good job of, taking the ball away. I think that's been probably the bright spot, on our defense, and up until probably, this week, I thought, our red zone defense had been pretty good. And offensively, we've got to do a better job of protecting the ball. I think that's where we got to play a little bit better complementary football.
You said you kind of have confidence in yourself and your track record. Do you have full confidence in your assistant coaches and like how your message is maybe being sent to the players? If that makes sense, and if so, is that something?
Yeah, I feel confident in that. Yeah.
Do you have an update on Tyron?
He had I guess it was a contusion to the forearm or whatever. I think he's going to be fine. All right, guys, thanks.